Joe Rogan recently sat down with conspiracy theory researcher Ian Carrol and had a really interesting conversation. Unsurprisingly, the topic of the UAP phenomenon came up, more specifically regarding an alleged government-planned false flag alien invasion event known as Project Bluebeam. As always, I'll attempt to give a spiritual perspective on the matter, in addition to some words from benevolent galactic beings on this topic of Project Bluebeam. But first, let's take a look at a few recent UAP videos, which are really impressive. We have heard the testimonies of government whistleblowers in Congress that have described the flight behavior of UAPs as defying the laws of physics. And in these three clips, we can see UAPs maneuvering in ways that seem highly unusual, if not impossible. But before we get into the clips, I just want to remind you that I have no idea if these sightings are real or fake, and that we must always use our intuitive discernment to decide if something is genuine or false. That being said, I personally believe that this first video is indeed genuine. It's from the YouTube channel Chaos Moogle, but I recognize one of the voices in the video as belonging to a gentleman named James Gilliland. He is the founder of an association called ESETI, and he regularly hosts groups of people for watching UAPs. I suspect they utilize CE5 telepathic protocols to summon UAPs, but I'm not entirely sure. Nonetheless, over the years, he has hosted thousands of people at his ranch in Washington State near Mount Adams. I have placed links in the description box below to both Chaos Moogle and ESETI. Please take a look for further information. Now, regarding the video, James is using a laser pointer to track a UAP moving through the sky. And as soon as the UAP recognizes that it's being chased, it immediately goes into evasive maneuvers, almost in a way that says, "Catch me if you can." At one point, the UAP flashes brightly, almost as if it's signaling James on the ground, and then performs an instantaneous halt and reverses direction 180 degrees. Now, conventional aircraft cannot maneuver like this. Again, we have no way of verifying if this footage is genuine and not edited. However, if it is real, and I strongly suspect it is absolutely incredible to see a craft perform these types of aerial acrobatics at potentially hypersonic speeds.
Oh, here's another one right here. You see him? Flying right over our heads. Pointing it right at him. And now he's turning. Yeah. Yeah, you see him?
Yeah, it just flashed.
I'm lasering at him and he's curving. Shit.
Did you see how fast that thing moved?
This next clip took place in Turkey back in 2022, filmed by Erkan Sevimli. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's a similar situation as the previous video. Erkan has a laser pointer and is also tracking a UAP cruising through the sky at very high speed. But once again, as soon as the UAP realizes that it's being chased by the beam, it goes hypersonic and tries to evade. This clip comes to us via the YouTube channel Janine. I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce it, but I do know that he or she is based in France. So maybe it's Janine. Anyway, it is possibly one of the best, if not the best, UAP research and compilation channels. I've included a link to his or her Patreon down below, so let's take a look. This last clip takes place in New Jersey, filmed during the height of the New Jersey drone mass sightings, which started in mid-November of last year. If I'm not mistaken, the sightings are still occurring. However, the hysteria surrounding the event has died down following government announcements from the FAA and President Trump's office that the drones were part of an FAA experiment, as well as other reasons that could not be mentioned. Now, that explanation didn't sit well with many people, and I guess you can say it was a red flag for people's intuitive discernment. This explanation was widely unaccepted. Again, I remind you that I don't know if this clip is real or fake, In fact, I am aware that there are high-performance hobbyist drones that can go very fast speeds, but I'm not sure if they can maneuver in the same way as this UAP, which also happens to be giving off an incredibly bright light, consistent with many orb or plasmoid UAP sightings. But I'll let you decide for yourself.
This is crazy. My God, look at it.
A post shared by The Hidden Reality on Instagram on January 30th has left viewers intrigued by a mysterious sighting in New Jersey.
That's going way too fast. That's not... What's up with my camera?
The post features a video captured by a man who witnessed a glowing orb flying through the night sky.
I had to go run in and get my camera. Nobody was going to believe me.
Whatever it is, it appears far too fast to be a plane.
Look at this thing. Is he... Jesus Christ.
So is this just a commercial drone or something a little more mysterious? Let me know in the comments.
That's not a plane. That is wild.
So what do you think about that? Those are some amazing clips. After watching the first video, it occurred to me that when the UAP quickly flashes and then goes hypersonic, its gravity amplifiers were probably powering up in that moment to give a quick burst of acceleration. It's just a guess, I don't know for sure, but if you don't know what gravity wave amplifiers are, I suggest to do a search for those words plus the name Bob Lazar, and I believe you'll find an answer. Just in case you don't know already who Bob Lazar is, he's a well-known Area 51 whistleblower who allegedly worked on a non-human UAP reverse engineering program. But anyway, as promised before, here's that conversation with Joe Rogan and Ian Carrol.
Okay, what do you think is going on with the whole UAP thing?
Dude, I love this fucking conversation.
I love this.
I love this conversation too.
I never get tired of it.
Do you want to go the angle of like, what are the crafts, or do you want to go the bigger angle of like, what is the phenomenon?
Okay,
Great
let's start
question.
with what is the phenomenon?
I think that right now, science and religion and UAP exposure are all converging on similar truths.
Wow, right out of the gate, this guy's hitting it right on the head. That's essentially what the issue is. That the whole UAP ET phenomenon is ultimately a spiritual issue. It's about humanity waking up to its own divinity, which has been suppressed and manipulated by the powers that be. That's the core of the issue. But let's continue.
And what I mean by that is that science, so you know the science of consciousness, how we don't really know where the fuck consciousness comes from?
Right.
But there's a lot of people that start to suggest that it sounds like we're antenna that are receiving consciousness from some sort of consciousness field or some sort of other, like...
Have you read any Thomas Campbell?
No, I don't think
You
so.
should read
Yeah.
the Big Toe, Theory of Everything. It's
yeah.
very bizarre stuff. Very hard to swallow. You got to go back and listen to it multiple times. Or
I like
read
that
it
kind of
multiple
shit.
times. I had him on the podcast, and at the end of it, I was like, we got to stop here. And I have to think about everything you said,
Yep.
and then we'll bring you back, and we'll go deeper. Because he wanted to keep going and go deeper and deeper. Like, he's been living in these
It goes and
realms.
goes, dude. Because you're talking metaphysics, you're talking physics, you're talking
Multiverse.
like history and like disclosure about history and dimension. And like I suspect that whatever consciousness is coming from is this multiverse, this consciousness field, this ether, this multidimensional thing, whatever. I suspect that's very similar to what UAPs are traversing in and out of and through. And I suspect that's very similar to what we identify as either the gods plural, the aliens plural that have these abilities we don't have,
Angels and
as well
demons.
as God singular, which is probably the highest up above all of those things. I suspect there's a version of all these things that are starting to converge on one truth, because when you learn about remote viewing, that's what really cracked it for me, was learning how much money the CIA has invested in remote viewing over the years. The CIA is not spending millions and millions of dollars on some crackpot bullshit that's not going to work. They would for a little while, but they've been doing it and doing it and doing it. And now we've got disclosure from people that are coming out whistleblowing that they are doing it today. And I'm in the program, and this is how we did it.
Have you listened to the telepathy tapes?
I've listened to a little bit of them. I've not listened all the
I
way
had Kai
through.
Dickens on the podcast the other day, and she explained the whole thing, like provable, hours and hours and hours of nonverbal autistic kids who have telepathy, provable telepathy, undeniable,
That's crazy,
100%
dude.
accuracy, wild.
Yeah. And
Wild
I suspect
stuff.
that all of that is, and there's a weaponization of it. There's I mean, it's not just public study of it. There's definitely been private study of it by the intelligence agencies and probably the weapons developers for a long time. I mean, I was very surprised to hear Elon's answer to your alien question the other day, which I understand that he probably couldn't talk about it anyway.
That's how I take all of his answers about aliens.
Yeah. It's like,
okay.
Nice try. I had to try.
All right.
But like,
and
there's
look,
no
I
way.
don't ask him about it off air either.
Yeah.
I don't.
I mean,
like,
you got to
okay.
respect a man's like private. Like he's got NDAs up the wazoo for that kind of shit.
Also, he has top secret military clearance and he runs SpaceX.
Bingo.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Bingo.
I wouldn't say jack shit.
And
I'd be
that's
like,
where flat Earth
they're
comes
all
in.
real. They're very subtle. That's what I would say too.
Exactly. And I think that flat Earth, a lot of the evidence that gets cited as flat Earth, like for example, NASA fakes footage. And if you look into it, it's fucking obvious that NASA is putting out fake footage. They're clearly on wires in some of that footage. Clearly, some of that footage is underwater and there's bubbles fucking floating up and shit. But
Which footage?
Just like NASA publishes all kinds of footage, from like the ISS to they have live streams to they do like videos, and no one ever watches it because like whoever watches random.
So you
NASA
think some
footage,
of the ISS footage is fake?
There's a lot of footage you can find online that is coming from NASA where there's like little slips or like a guy is like they're doing their floating shit and then the buddy reaches out and grabs where a wire is to help his buddy get back into frame, like little slips of the mind where they're like just trying to orchestrate. Yeah,
there are lots of video clips that have been filmed from the ISS of UAP, and every time a UAP comes into view, they cut the feed. They immediately shut it down. Interesting.
And
I've never seen any of that.
And who knows
I've
if
seen
it's
the moon
who knows if
landing
it's
footage
real
that
or
looks
not.
hokey.
Yeah, so all I'm saying is that gets cited by flat earthers as like NASA's covering up flat Earth.
Okay.
And what I'm saying is that there's a lot of reasons why NASA would cover up and produce fake footage from something like the ISS, and every single one of them rhymes with aliens. Because if there's any type of aliens going on up here, it's very possible that they are up there in that fucking space station, or they're or like they could be, like I don't know. And I'm not saying I think they are for sure. I'm just saying that people tend to look at a piece of evidence and jump too quickly on the one explanation that they're sure is right. And sometimes there's other explanations. And aliens apply to so many parts of our world, like demons. Sound very much like the UAP phenomenon to me, right? A lot of these religious beliefs sound very much like explainable just with different wording by UAP phenomenon. As in, some of these aliens, we seem to be being told that they communicate telepathically. They have energetic ability, right?
Yeah.
I'm getting to the point where I'm suspecting that we're gonna be finding out that religion is like humans trying to interpret these phenomenon over millennia in all the human ways we would, and telling stories about them. And I'm not saying that God's not real. I'm saying God is real, and that does not diminish God at all. I almost think it makes God more important and more powerful to understand, because from my understanding, correct me if you have a different one, it sounds like we're getting a lot of reports that are cross-corroborating that there's more than one thing going on here. It's not all aliens are the same, and it's not some of them might be us from the future, some of them might be us from under the water, some of them might be other species. It's really hard to pin down like what all these phenomenon are, but they're definitely not just made up.
And I think some of them are ours.
I agree.
I think I think the cover up is the weird part though. It's like if you go back to Operation Blue Book, when they started doing that, the sole purpose of Operation Blue Book is to take any credible story and make it look ridiculous.
Yeah.
And they talked about that openly. And then Hynek, when he left Operation Blue Book, became a believer.
Yeah.
And started talking about UFOs being real. That's that's a big old red flag right there.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the UFO community is filled with people like that are, and it's really hard to know who's who. It's super hard to know who's who. And
there's a lot of misinformation out there, and that's why I try to follow a policy of non-judgment, trying to determine if something is extraterrestrial or human, if something is real or fake. I think it's safer to just appreciate things for face value from what you, how you perceive things. And if you wish to ascribe a meaning or a value to it, then that's your absolute right. And you're not right and you're not wrong. There's no such thing, because every single perspective is valid.
And did you notice how recently, like a month ago, sort of, there was this breaking story that set the whole UAP community on fire about this disclosure that I think Jeremy Corbell was coming out and whistleblowing on, if I remember correctly, that they were saying that they're gonna Bluebeam, they're gonna trick us by saying that there's a mothership arriving in 3 years.
Right. Yeah, I did hear that.
And it becomes this thing where it's like, how do you know he's saying that he's exposing it, but how do you know if he's exposed? It's just like, it's the ultimate test of, are you skeptical enough and also open-minded enough and thoughtful enough?
Yeah, so there you have it. Very interesting conversation with Joe Rogan and Ian Carrol. As promised before, I've included a channeling about Project Bluebeam. So take a listen.
We see that the shadow groups, sometimes called the Cabal, have been considering one last desperate strategy. You have learned of this under various names, including the so-called Project Bluebeam. Essentially, they wish to project holographic images or illusions in an attempt to manipulate public perception. Many insiders have stepped forward to expose this plan, and enough of humanity is awake to its possibility. While it is not entirely off the table that they may still attempt such a trick, do not be disheartened. The seeds of transparency have already been planted in the collective mind, ensuring that a mass deception of this magnitude will not have the hold it might have had in the past. Remain observant, but do not allow fear to weaken your resolve. Your power is stronger than any illusions they can conjure.
But yeah, that's basically what Project Bluebeam is in a nutshell. This fake alien invasion that's allegedly being planned. One thing that the benevolent ETs are almost hoping happens is that this Project Bluebeam is attempted, because what the dark factions don't realize is that by doing so, by launching this scheme, they're basically opening the door for the benevolent ETs to present themselves, to come in and thwart their plans and take it over. Because there's a universal law of free will that the benevolent ETs honor. They refuse to violate humanity's free will. And by showing themselves and saying, hey, here we are, not everyone is ready for that, and would be a violation of humanity's free will without the explicit permission from humanity as a whole. However, if a fake alien invasion were to be perpetuated, then the benevolent ETs could come in and present themselves without violating the free will of humanity, because it was already violated by this Project Bluebeam. Project Bluebeam just opened the door for the benevolent ETs to come through. So what would be the purpose of this Project Bluebeam false flag fake alien invasion? Well, to answer that question, I'll let the Galactics speak for themselves.
We see only a few major moves remaining on the Cabal's chessboard, and they are likely to try them in rapid succession or simultaneously. These could include engineering further conflicts or wars to activate martial law or distract from disclosures, attempting a cyber pandemic or massive hacking attack to blame the coming financial collapse on something other than them, pushing extreme climate or food crises narratives to induce panic, or even a false flag alien invasion scenario using their secret technologies, hoping to unite the world under their militarized control, portraying benevolent ETs as enemies. Be aware of these possibilities, but do not fear them. In all cases, the Alliance is steps ahead and has countermeasures ready. Many whistleblowers and truth speakers have already preemptively exposed these potential plots, which greatly reduces the Cabal's chance of success. Simply by knowing about their possible tricks, you diminish their power. If the collective consciousness does not buy into the fear, the plans fizzle.
Well, there you have it. Some insights from the Galactic Federation of Light. incredible information that keeps us aware of any potential situations that may take place. And if they do, we're prepared and we don't have to react in fear. We can always choose another path. So that's it for today. If you found value in this episode, please like and subscribe. This is only my second episode and I have a long way to go, but I do plan on sticking around. I'm committed for the long haul and I plan to make many, many more episodes and I'm only going to get better. So please help me out. If you could share in your social channels, that would be tremendous. So thanks for being with me. Take care and enjoy.